Once upon a time, in a grand castle surrounded by lush gardens, there lived a beautiful princess who was known far and wide for her beauty and grace. She had golden hair that shimmered like the morning sun and eyes that sparkled with curiosity. She was beloved by all, yet she often found herself longing for adventure beyond the castle walls. The princess loved to wander through the dense forest that bordered the castle grounds. She delighted in the songs of the birds, the rustling of the leaves, and the scent of wildflowers. In this forest, there was an old stone well shaded by towering trees, where she often sat and daydreamed. One of her most cherished possessions was a golden ball, a gift from her father, the king. She would often bring it with her on her walks, tossing it high into the air and catching it with joy. One warm afternoon, as she played near the well, she threw the golden ball up once more, but this time, she missed her catch. She watched in horror as the ball plummeted into the well, disappearing into the dark, murky depths. She gasped, realizing that the well was far too deep for her to retrieve it. Tears welled in her eyes as she dropped to her knees beside the well, sobbing uncontrollably, feeling as though she had lost a dear friend. As she cried, a small green frog emerged from the water and spoke to her. "Why are you so sad, dear princess?" he asked. "Oh, my golden ball has fallen into the well, and I cannot reach it," she replied. The frog looked at her and said, "I can retrieve your ball for you, but what will you give me in return?" The princess, eager to get her toy back, promised him anything he desired: fine clothes, jewels, even a golden crown. But the frog simply shook his head. "I do not want your riches," he said. "Promise me instead that you will let me eat from your plate, drink from your cup, and sleep on your pillow." Thinking the frog's request foolish, the princess hastily agreed, believing he would never leave the well. The moment she made her promise, the frog dove into the water and soon returned with the golden ball. Overjoyed, the princess grabbed it and ran back to the castle, forgetting all about the frog. That evening, as she dined with her father, a strange noise came from the castle doors. Plop, plop, plop. Then a tiny voice called out, "Princess, open the door for me. Have you forgotten your promise?" The princess turned pale and told the king what had happened. He frowned and said, "A promise must be kept. Let the frog in." Reluctantly, the princess opened the door, and the frog hopped inside. He sat beside her at the table, eating from her plate and drinking from her cup. As he tasted the food, his eyes widened with delight. "Oh, what a delicious feast! Never have I eaten such fine food!" he croaked happily. The princess wrinkled her nose but said nothing. She hoped that once the meal was over, the frog would leave. But instead, he looked up at her and said, "It is time for bed now, dear princess. You must take me with you." The princess recoiled in disgust. "No, you have had your meal. Now go back to the well where you belong." But the king sternly reminded her, "You are a princess, and a promise must always be honored." Tears of frustration filled her eyes, but she obeyed. She picked up the slimy frog and carried him to her chambers. When she reached her room, she placed him as far from herself as possible. "Lift me onto your bed," he demanded. She hesitated, but again, her father's words rang in her ears. With great reluctance, she reached out and grabbed the frog between two fingers, her face twisted in discomfort. As she carried him, her grip faltered, and he slipped from her grasp, falling to the floor with a soft thud. For a moment, he lay there, completely still. The princess gasped, her heart pounding in fear. "Oh no, have I killed him?" she whispered. Panicked, she knelt beside him, gently nudging his limp body. "Please, wake up! I didn't mean to," she cried. But the frog remained motionless. Guilt washed over her, and without thinking, she leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to his cold, lifeless skin. In an instant, a golden light filled the room. The frog trembled, then his form began to change. Before the princess's astonished eyes, he stretched, grew, and transformed into a handsome young prince. The princess gasped, stepping back in shock. The prince smiled kindly. "Do not fear, dear princess. I was once a man like any other, but my greed led me astray. I hunted the creatures of the forest without care, taking more than I needed. One day a fairy appeared before me and declared that until I learned kindness and humility, I would live as one of the creatures I had so carelessly harmed." His gaze softened as he looked at the princess. "Your kindness, though reluctant, has broken the spell. You have given me a second chance." The princess, still overwhelmed, slowly smiled. She realized that true kindness came from action, not just words. In time, she and the prince grew fond of each other, and their story became one of love, redemption, and the importance of keeping one's promises. And so, they lived happily ever after, never forgetting the lessons they had learned. Welcome to the Bedtime Stories channel. I am Emma, and today we will bring you the animated version of The Three Little Pigs. If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more magical tales. Are you ready to dive into the magic? Once upon a time, there were three little pigs who lived happily with their mother in a cozy little cottage. But as they grew older, their mother told them it was time for them to set out into the world and make their own way.
My dear children, you are grown now and must each build a home of your own. But be wise and careful, for the world is full of dangers, and the big bad wolf is always lurking.
The three little pigs hugged their mother goodbye and set off on their journey. As they walked down the road, they talked about their plans. The first little pig, who loved to play more than he liked to work, said,
"I will build a house quickly so I can spend my days having fun. I think straw will be the easiest to use."
The second little pig, who was a bit more hardworking but still wanted to finish quickly, said,
"I will build mine out of sticks. It will be stronger than straw, but won't take too long to build."
The third little pig, the wisest of them all, thought carefully.
"I want my house to be strong enough to keep me safe. It will take more time and effort, but I will build it from bricks."
And so, the three little pigs parted ways, each determined to build their home in their own way. The first little pig, eager to finish quickly and enjoy his time playing, gathered bundles of straw and hastily built his house. It was a simple structure, light and easy to construct, and in no time, he was done. Pleased with his work, he settled down to rest, feeling quite content, until he heard the heavy footsteps of the big bad wolf approaching.
Little pig, let me come in,"
The wolf called.
"Not by the hair on my chinny chin-chin,"
replied the little pig.
"Then I'll huff and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in,"
growled the wolf. The wolf took a deep breath and blew with all his might. The straw house collapsed instantly, and the little pig ran as fast as he could to his brother's house. The second little pig, eager to finish his home quickly, gathered a pile of sticks and built a small house. It was sturdier than the straw house, but still not very strong. Just as he was admiring his work, his brother came running, out of breath and frightened. Before they could even catch their breath, the big bad wolf appeared once more.
"Now, little pigs, let me come in,"
the wolf demanded.
"Not by the hair on our chinny chin-chins,"
the two pigs shouted.
"Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in,"
the wolf roared. He huffed and puffed, and the stick house came crashing down. The two little pigs squealed in fright and ran as fast as their legs could carry them to their older brother's house. Their little hearts pounded as they dashed through the woods, hearing the wolf's heavy footsteps behind them. The third little pig, being both wise and hardworking, had carefully built his house using sturdy bricks. He had spent days ensuring that every brick was securely in place, making the house solid and strong. When his frightened brothers arrived, he quickly let them inside, bolting the door behind them to keep them safe from the big bad wolf. The wolf's eyes gleamed with hunger as he licked his lips, ready to feast on the foolish little pigs. Soon, the big bad wolf arrived and knocked on the door.
Little pigs, let me come in,"
he called.
"Not by the hair on our chinny chin-chins,"
the 3 pigs replied together.
Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in,
The wolf bellowed. The wolf took a deep breath and blew with all his might. But no matter how hard he huffed and puffed, the brick house stood firm. He tried again and again, but the house would not fall. Furious and desperate, the wolf decided to trick the pigs.
Little pigs, I know where there's a fine field of turnips.
He said sweetly.
Shall I take you there tomorrow morning?
But the clever 3rd pig replied,
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Where is this field?
At Farmer Brown's garden. I'll come by at 6 in the morning to take you there.
The wise little pig got up at 5, gathered turnips, and was back home before the wolf arrived. The wolf was furious. Then the wolf tried again.
Little pig, I know where there's a great apple tree,
He said.
Shall I take you there tomorrow?
Where is it?
Asked the pig.
In the orchard beyond the hill. I'll come by at 5 in the morning.
But the little pig woke up at 4, gathered apples, and was back home before the wolf appeared. The wolf was angrier than ever. Determined to catch the pigs, the wolf finally said,
Little pig, there's a fair tomorrow. Shall we go together?
The pig agreed, but he went early, before the wolf arrived. At the fair, he bought a butter churn. On his way home, he saw the wolf coming up the hill. Quickly, he jumped into the churn and rolled down the hill. Seeing the strange rolling object, the wolf got so frightened that he ran away. Furious and humiliated, the wolf paced around the house trying to think of a way to get inside. Then he spotted the chimney and hatched a plan.
If I can't blow the house down, I'll sneak in through the top.
He thought with a wicked grin, but the wise little pig had been keeping an eye on the wolf. He quickly stoked the fire and placed a large pot of water over it to boil. Just as the wolf clambered onto the roof and squeezed himself down the chimney, the scalding steam rose to meet him.
Yow!
The wolf howled as he tumbled straight into the bubbling pot. With a desperate leap, he scrambled out and dashed into the woods, howling in pain and humiliation. From that day on, he never dared to bother the 3 little pigs again. The first 2 pigs, grateful for their brother's wisdom and bravery, promised to work as hard as he had. They all lived together in the strong brick house, safe and happy, knowing that careful planning and effort always triumph over laziness and tricks.
Welcome to the Bedtime Stories channel, the place for magical bedtime tales. Today we present an original story, The 7 Continents Quest, the first adventure, the voyage to South America. Follow Thomas on his adventure to South America, where he will search for lost treasures in jungles and ancient temples. Stay tuned for 6 more parts, filled with exciting adventures. The 7 Continents Quest, the first adventure, South America. Near a great port, where a little boy named Thomas wandered lost in thought, an old ship with unfurled flags appeared on the horizon. The boy quickly realized that it might be a pirate ship, as he had heard many stories about pirates. Young Thomas had always admired pirates. He spent his days at the harbor, listening to sailors' tales of distant lands, priceless treasures, and perilous sea battles. As the ship drew closer, Thomas overheard a conversation among several men wearing wide-brimmed hats and long cloaks. They spoke of a grand expedition, a journey around the world to find the 7 treasures hidden across the 7 continents. Upon hearing these words, Thomas's heart began to race. There was no time to think. This was his chance. He decided he must sneak aboard the pirate ship, the Black Seagull, just before it set sail again. He knew he had to do it, for that was what brave men did. While the sailors were loading the cargo for which they had docked, Thomas quietly crept aboard and found a hiding place in the supply hold, nestled between barrels of salted meat and crates of rum. However, he soon realized he had a problem. The hold was guarded by old pirate Grog, who spent most nights sleeping there. At that moment, Thomas understood that a difficult and dangerous journey lay ahead. For the first few days, Thomas feared that his companion Grog, who shared his cabin, would discover him. To survive, Thomas had to steal food from the crew's supplies. Grog was a rough and careless man, always with a bottle of rum in hand. One night, as Thomas was sneaking towards a sack of bread, he accidentally knocked over a cup. Grog woke up, squinted at him, and blinked. Instead of raising an alarm, he simply rubbed his eyes and muttered, "Damn curse! Treasures haunt me even in my dreams. A little ghost with a pirate scarf. Oh, I really need to drink less." Thomas quickly hid, while Grog grunted and went back to sleep. Over the following days, Thomas discovered that Grog actually knew a great deal about the treasures. In moments of intoxication, the old pirate would talk to himself, recounting stories of golden idols in jungles, lost diamonds in deserts, and pearls hidden in icy caves. Every night, Thomas crept closer and questioned him, pretending to be just a figment of his imagination. Eventually, he learned that the first treasure was located in an ancient temple deep within the jungles of South America. The journey there took weeks. Thomas hid in the shadows whenever the pirates entered the hold for food and carefully took only small portions of supplies. A crust of bread, a few dried fruits, and occasionally a bit of meat. He spent his nights curled up in the corner of the hold, making sure to remain unnoticed. Finally, the ship anchored off the shores of South America. The pirates eagerly disembarked, armed and impatient to find the treasure. The jungle was dense and dangerous, filled with the sounds of unknown creatures. Their path led them to the ruins of an ancient temple, overgrown with vines and moss. Grog had told Thomas that at the heart of this temple lay a golden idol, guarded by traps and riddles. While the pirates discussed how to enter, Thomas sneaked inside. Moving stealthily beyond their watchful eyes, the little stowaway noticed that the corridors were riddled with traps. Arrows shot from the walls, floor tiles shifted, but he was quick and careful. He treaded lightly through the dark. Dusty temple passages. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of dampness and old wood. Every step he took echoed in his ears, like the pounding of his own heart. The temple walls bore ancient carvings that seemed to serve as warnings, but he paid them no mind. There was no time for hesitation. At any moment something could give him away. Navigating through narrow passageways, Thomas reached the temple's main chamber. His eyes widened in amazement at the sight before him. In the center of the hall, placed atop a stone pedestal, gleamed the golden idol Grog had described. But that wasn't all. The chamber was filled with breathtaking treasures, radiating with the shine of gold and precious gems. Thomas cautiously stepped forward, scanning his surroundings. Gold coins littered the floor, shining like tiny suns in the temple's darkness. Silver goblets, lavish vases adorned with tourmalines and diamonds, and ornate golden bands that once belonged to royalty were scattered about. Against the ancient stone walls, large rubies and emeralds rested, while a crystal chest full of pearls gleamed in a dim alcove. The pearls were so white and radiant that they resembled fallen stars. For a moment, Thomas hesitated. His eyes widened with awe and longing for the treasure, but he quickly regained his composure. He knew time was against him, and the pirates would soon return. His gaze locked onto the idol, an exquisite statue of an ancient deity, its face frozen in an eternal expression of grace. The golden material shimmered in the dim light that seeped through the temple's broken roof. Thomas hesitated once more. The golden idol was the most valuable object there, but he couldn't take everything. He had to focus on the most precious items and escape as quickly as possible. With swift movements, he began filling his bag with gold coins, gemstones, and rubies he found nearby. His heart pounded not just with excitement, but also with fear. At any moment, the pirates could come rushing in. As he reached for the last golden artifact from the idol's pedestal, Thomas heard a noise in the distance. The pirates had finally managed to break into the temple. The air was thick with tension. Thomas darted into a dark corner, hiding among the piles of gold coins. He watched as the pirates stormed into the chamber, overwhelmed by the sight of the treasure. They shouted, bit into the gold coins to test their authenticity, and fought among themselves over who would take what. One of the pirates nearly spotted him, but at that moment, part of the ceiling collapsed. And in the ensuing chaos, Thomas seized his chance to escape. Running as fast as he could, he reached the shore before the others and quickly climbed back onto the ship. He hid his bag in his secret spot, and only when he was alone in the darkness of the hold allowed himself to relax. His heart was still pounding from the adventure, but he knew this was just the beginning of his new life. A life of adventure and independence. Thank you for watching the story of Little Thomas. I hope you like it. The adventure is just beginning. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't